Your Iowa Hawkeye football team is still in the midst of its season in spite of the disappointment that's come with the 2024 campaign. 2 games left, Iowa coming off a bye week, and an opportunity to watch that same UCLA team that ran for 200-plus yards in the Hawkeyes run for less than 60 against a mediocre Washington Huskies team. And on this Monday, the Hawkeyes getting news, and Hawkeye fans getting news, that their presumptive starter at quarterback, Brendan Sullivan, who got dinged up against UCLA, is now out for the season, according to a report. We'll talk about it in just one moment. But first, I want to thank Iowa Floor Covering, our sponsor. Visit IFC in person down in Bondurant, or you can call them 515-379-7000. Their website is iowafloorcovering.com. If you want to learn more about their DIY type of flooring, use the /DIY. That's iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. And check out the authentic Hawkeye prints from Randy Engel down at Under the Kitchen in Mitchellville. He is a huge Hawkeye fan. He's got deals with a bunch of Hawkeye players, former and current players. Check it all out, Under the Kitchen on Facebook, or visit his website. It's underthekitchen.square.site. So the news that broke here a few hours ago, Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports reporting that Iowa will be down Brendan Sullivan for the remainder of the 2024 season. Here is Matt's official tweet that was published earlier today at about 7:30 this morning. Matt tweets, and I quote, Iowa QB Brendan Sullivan, who has started the last 2 games for the Hawkeyes, is expected to miss the rest of the regular season due to an ankle injury. A source tells CBS Sports and 247 Sports Iowa closes the regular season against Maryland and Nebraska. Now, recall that Cade McNamara was struggling when he went down due to a concussion a couple of weeks ago, and Kirk Ferentz never really had to address whether or not Brendan Sullivan would be the starter upon Cade McNamara's return, and it appears that he will not have to confront that issue because it sounds like, per the depth chart this week, Cade McNamara is ready to go. The 2 deeps coming out for Maryland week. And here's a look at the depth charts. You see Cade McNamara listed at the top there, along with Jackson Stratton, the La Jolla, California native, who played extensively in that second half a week ago this past Friday because of the injuries to McNamara, to Brendan Sullivan, to Marco Lainez, who, by the way, is also out for the season with a hand injury. And so he is backing up Cade McNamara, who is expected to return from a concussion. If you look through the rest of the 2 deeps, it's amazing. Iowa's actually pretty healthy across the board. I mean, they have stayed really healthy up front along that offensive line. It's amazing. Bo Stevens, he's playing. Mason Richmond's playing. Cade Pieper's still there. Logan Jones, Tyler Ellsbury, Connor Colby, Jennings Dunker, Nick DeYoung, they're all listed. They're all expected to play. Iowa's actually stayed very healthy up front throughout the season, and that's an area as far as injuries are concerned, that typically Iowa has some problems staying healthy. That's why you want to have good depth developed, which they do this year, and yet they have lost 4 games. You see at quarterback, Cade finally back, which is good, but then you lose another guy in Brendan Sullivan, who I think fans in general wanted Brendan to be the starter the rest of the way. Who knows what Kirk would have done? I think he probably would have stuck with Brendan because Brendan is the future next season, but now they return to Cade McNamara's services, a guy who has no eligibility left after he's done in 2024. And Iowa's also, you saw that list, they're healthy across the board at running back. I know Reese Vanderzee is not yet back at receiver, but basically everyone else is back. Everybody's back on defense. Jay Higgins expected to play. Sebastian Castro's expected to play. They're healthy on special teams. But what a disappointing season. I mean, we're going to be reflecting on this year later on. Regardless of what they do these last 2 weeks, it's disappointing. 8-4 is a big disappointment, major disappointment. And you're not a traitor to the program if you say that. Yes, the season's not over, and I'm not telling you not to watch the game at Maryland. I'm not telling you not to watch the game on Black Friday against Nebraska, but even if they blow those 2 teams out of the water, which I don't think they will, you can't possibly sit there and say that it was a good season at 8-4, not with what they returned and not with that schedule. And now Iowa has to deal with what's the future at quarterback. I know Brendan Sullivan didn't play very well against UCLA before he went down, but he had looked good to that point, and the turnovers are not a typical thing. You've looked at Brendan Sullivan's career, even back at Northwestern. That's not typically something we see a lot of from him. He is very mobile, but he doesn't cough the ball up nearly to the extent that he did against UCLA in Iowa's last game. So I do expect him to be the starter next year. Of course, we'll have a lot of time to talk about that. I do think Iowa will go to the portal at quarterback. Who knows what Marco Lainez is going to do? And I guess in some regards, in some circles, it will be considered kind of a cool storyline to have Cade return as the starter for his final 2 games and then a bowl game. And they're going to go to a bowl game, even if they lose out, right? They're not going to lose out, but they lose out and they go 6-6. They'll go to a bowl game. Kirk's not going to turn down an invitation to a bowl game. So he'll finish his career as Iowa's starter. I don't see Jackson Stratton surmounting Cade McNamara and taking over as the starting quarterback. That would probably just mean that Cade went down with an injury, and then they would have nobody else. If Sullivan's out for the season, if Linez is out for the season, boy, Cade McNamara's health is pretty important through these last couple of games. But at the same time, I could see the argument of someone saying, hey, let's see what the young guy from Loyola, California can do in Jackson Stratton. So that won't happen. Kirk's not going to start Stratton over Cade unless Cade is dinged up. And then the storyline becomes here in less than a month. All these guys that still have eligibility, Iowa, of course, is going to be losing so much on that roster. But all these guys who have eligibility, how many are coming back? How many are exiting via the portal? I think you're going to see very close to what we would call a mass exodus. Certainly, it's a mass exodus comparative to what we've seen during Kirk's tenure ever, right? Even in recent time with the portal era, you're going to see a lot of players leaving, not just because of graduation and loss of eligibility, but also because of the transfer portal. And that's the era that we watch and that we observe, that we love. And it is what it is. But Iowa will start Cade this Saturday. We'll have some preview coverage for you here. And then, of course, post-game coverage following the game live, which kicks off at 11 a.m. on Saturday against Maryland. It's the game Kirk versus his son, Brian, who's an analyst on the Terrapin staff. Keep it locked right here, folks, for men's and women's basketball coverage plus football coverage as we wind down the 2024 football season. We'll talk to you Tuesday live during a show with Mark Rogers over on his channel, Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. We'll talk to you soon.